This Friday, the Creative Economy Summit will be held at Greenfield Community College. We asked Michael Baines of the Fostering Art and Culture Project and Ann Burke from the Creative Economy Network to tell us more about what's planned and why this day-long event is so important.
Well, the Creative Economy Summit is being held to bring together a number of creative economy businesses and organizations who help support 5 different topics. These topics were identified through a listening tour that the state's creative economy director conducted a few years ago to identify what the greatest needs of creative economy businesses are and how do we best address them. So the 5 panels that we've pulled together plus the keynote speaker will be talking about visibility, access to capital, business development, space, and talent. And those are the key topics that creative businesses across the board identified as some of the major issues that either helped or limited their success. And so this summit is here to pull together creative businesses and experts in those different areas to talk about their experiences and to really allow for a discussion to take place about how to really maximize the resources that are out there and also talk about their own experiences of how they were successful or the challenges they faced in those areas.
Michael Baines, let me ask you now, creative people, we are talking artists, people who get an idea and a vision and make something out of it. These are very bright, creative people in every sense of the word, but these are folks that the business end of things isn't always what they do or are best at. No criticism meant for anybody. These are thinkers, you know.
So this is where we want to start to broaden how you think about the creative industries. We're really talking about anybody that's creative. I mean, we have creative people in this business here at WGBY. So people in marketing and architecture, the visual arts and crafts you just talked about, design, film and media, digital games and publishing are just some examples. You know, the movie theaters. Anybody that's involved in the creative economy at all. So it's more than just the arts and crafts person who's a potter or a jeweler or a handcrafter. It's really much broader than that. And what our effort is to try to, at this point, is the Fostering Arts and Culture Project produced the first 4 summits. This is the 5th, and what's very different about this one is it's Pioneer Valley wide. And so we've connected with the Lower Pioneer Valley, and that was the Creative Economy Network that was initiated by the state has helped us do. And that's why the subtitle of this is called Pulling It All Together, because we're really connecting the North and the South, so to speak. You know, to just leverage all the resources, because we've had a lot of networking events. Both EDC and FACP have held many networking events over the last few years, and so much happens at those events because of the synergy that comes together, and there's great stories about collaborations and connections that are made. So this is our annual event to really increase the capacity for everybody to connect.
Just a couple of added notes. When we think about the creative economy is comprised of 3 major sectors. The nonprofit world, like the Tanglewoods and the Quadrangle or MoCA or those sorts of nonprofit cultural organizations, and then the for-profit creative businesses like the architects or the digital gaming people, the animation studios, and those people who make their living in the creative industries, and then individuals who are earning their living as a creative, either alone as sole proprietors, or maybe they're the marketing department at Yankee Candle. All of those entities comprise the creative economy, and interestingly, in our 3 counties, it's about 26,000 jobs. So it's not an insignificant sector, and we think it's really important. And our network has pulled together organizations and towns and organizations who are trying to support that creative industry here in Western Massachusetts, and it really gives our valley much of the feel of what our valley represents, and it considers itself to be a place that's friendly, and people who are in creative industries. Many people choose to live here by choice, and we want to make sure that those businesses are able to have a living, find businesses, find talent, find this kind of space they need in order to be successful. So that's really one of the purposes of the summit and the topics that are going to be covered during the event.
Let me ask you, I want you to talk about, both of you may want to chime in on this one, the keynote speaker. I think is just fascinating. A gentleman by the name of Timothy Lowe. Massachusetts Digital Games Institute. It's known as MassDigi, and that is an area of great economic growth and potential. Development of video games, the video game ecosystem, as it's called. I don't think most of us tend to think of that as an industry, but it's huge, it's growing, it's worldwide, and there are people here who do that, and we want to help them, and it'd be nice to get more of them and help them grow their businesses even more.
Well, that's right. Tim is a wonderful keynote speaker because he has sort of created the model that other subsets in the creative industry can replicate in bringing together industry, academia, talent at Becker College to support the digital gaming industry in Massachusetts. We also talked about how can academic institutions prepare their students to work in this industry, and what does industry need, and what do the academic institutions need to do in order to prepare their students. So it was a great event, and then we capped it off with an event at HitPoint, and they actually use it as a recruiting tool. So we brought together students to come to this one-day event, and we had a couple hundred people there, and it was really great. This fall we did a digital media event with the Berkshire Film and Media Collaborative here in Holyoke, and about 200 people came. And what we were hoping to do there is to offer panels and speakers and workshops for people who were working in the digital media industry, but also to find out what's new in the industry in terms of equipment and software, and to invite the business community to come and see the videographers and the digital people who are here in the Valley to create some business-to-business opportunities as well. So we hope the summit actually serves that purpose. So it's for people who are interested in also coming to meet up with people who are working in the creative industries.
Michael Baines, let's take a second now. We're running out of time. Let's tell people how they can find out more, how they can pre-register. And it's not free. You do have to put in some money because there's a meal provided and things going on.
Cost. Yeah. So the summit's the 15th, Friday the 15th. It starts registration's at 8:30. The event runs the full day. It used to be a 2-day event. We've scaled it back to 1 day. And there's actually the keynote speaker, and then a panel, and then lunch break, and networking opportunity, and then 2 more panels. So there's actually 4 panels, 5 areas, 2 are combined. So 2 in the morning, you're going to have to choose, and then the lunch break and networking, and then 2 panels you have to choose. But then in the closing event, we're going to bring together all the information from those panels and share them, since everybody can't go to all 4. Mm-hmm. So the best way to is creativeeconomysummit.com. Register there. There's great information. I think we have a really beautiful, well-done website for information. Again, it's $45, which is modest, which includes lunch. So we try to keep the cost low, and we really are looking for all kinds of creative economy and industry people to be there.
Well, Michael Baines, Ann Burke, best of luck with Creative Economy Summit 5. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Jim.